Mikro. Torah tells us, "V'yidaber Hashem Elov me'ol moed lemor." Hashem spoke to him from the Ol Moed, from the tent. So Rashi over here explains Ol Moed, that the voice of Hashem would stop at the Ol Moed and could not be heard outside of the Ol Moed. Maybe the reason why you weren't able to hear the voice of Hashem was because it was lower. It was lower. It wasn't as loud as it could be. That's why it wasn't able to be heard outside. Talmud Lomar es hakol. We read later. It says the kol, this sound, ma kol, hakol hamafurish b'tilim. It's the same kol which David Melch refers to in Tilim. Kol Hashem b'koach. Whenever Hashem speaks, it's b'koach. It's with power. Kol Hashem b'hodor. The voice of Hashem is with splendor. Kol Hashem shovei arozim. The voice of Hashem, or the sound of Hashem, smashes cedars. So it's powerful. So if it's that powerful, why could it not be heard outside the Ol Moed? So it was like miraculous that although the sound, the voice of Hashem was shattering, that it would even shatter cedars, it went till the parameters of the Ol Moed and would not go beyond its walls. The sound of the wings of the kruvim, of the cherubs, we heard until the outer courtyard. Talmud Lomar could call Kel Shakai Bedabro. It was like the sound of Kel Shakai when he would speak. So why does it say the sound only went till the outer courtyard? It only went till that point. So I asked the question. We find over here, we're saying that although the voice of Hashem was earth-shattering, that was the decibels of the sound of Hashem's voice, but it would go till the walls of the Ol Moed, would not go beyond. You could not hear it beyond that point. I mean, if the only one has to hear it is Moshe Rabbeinu, speak at a lower decibel level, why does it have to be earth-shattering at that louder sound? Now, what is the Ol Moed? The Rambam points out that the Mishkan was a replication of Sinai. Initially, before the Chet Egel, Hashem communicated directly with us. After Chet Egel, as I said, it was arm's distance. But besides that, Sinai was a one-time event. The Mishkan, it was shifted to Klal Yisrael. Even if we would have sinned, it would have been, but factually, the Shekhinah would be directly in our midst, but it was a carryover of Sinai. He points out, for instance, the gold in the sanctuary, in the Holy of Holies, it was all gold. What is gold? The color of gold is fire. As it says by Sinai, that there was an inferno on the Sinai, on the mountain, which depicted the Shekhinah. So what is the Mishkan? The Mishkan is a replication of Sinai. Many things we find in the Mishkan are representative of what Sinai was. Now, at Sinai, how did God communicate with Moshe Rabbeinu? How did he communicate with the Jewish people? They heard his voice. At what level, what decibels was that voice? Earth-shattering. As a result of that, whenever Hashem speaks within this context, it's always at that level. The Kol Hashem is that. So even when he speaks to Moshe Rabbeinu is the equivalent of Klal Yisrael, and it's a continuation of Sinai. As at Sinai he spoke at that level of decibels, because the question is, when you speak to Moshe Rabbeinu, you want to speak to the Jewish people at Sinai. But now he's speaking to Moshe Rabbeinu as an individual. As the Rambam says in the laws of Yisodei HaTorah, when Hashem spoke to Moshe at Sinai, the Jews actually heard the communication between Hashem and Moshe. As the Rambam says, he said to Moshe, go tell the Jews such and such. And therefore the Rambam says that we know that Moshe was Hashem's spokesman. It's not through hearsay, but rather we saw it with our own eyes. We experienced it directly. It was an open prophecy. And we heard exactly how Hashem had instructed Moshe to speak to us. So that Moshe Rabbeinu is God's spokesman is because God openly, in our presence, chose him to be a spokesman because we heard him say to Moshe, lech kach v'kach, go tell them such and such. And since the Mishkan itself, whenever the communication between Hashem and Moshe is the equivalent of Sinai, therefore that is the decibels of the communication between Hashem. So therefore the voice, the sound was earth-shattering. But it was Me'ol Moed, it was miraculous that the sound only went till the perimeters of the walls of the Me'ol Moed did not go beyond that point. It's very interesting. How far does sound carry? Sound carries as far as the sound goes. Why at a certain distance you don't hear it any longer? Because the sound is like light. Light can only shine to a point. Beyond that point, it dims, and eventually you don't see the light any longer. Sound also, based on the decibels of the sound, you hear it so far. So it carries. Light carries to a point. Beyond that point, it goes like it totally dissipates. We find in Parshas Hazinu, Moshe Rabbeinu says, normally when you shoot an arrow, once the arrow is shot, you have no control over that arrow any longer. Once it's been launched, you cannot retrieve it. With Hashem, even when the arrow's in flight, God could stop the arrow in flight. So therefore, even if it's midas hadin, if Hashem wants to intervene and stop that prosecution, that moment, it ceases in midair. He's able to withdraw it in midair. That's what it is. What does sound carry? Because once you launch that sound that has that intensity of sound, it carries. But Hashem, every moment the sound exists is because he wills that sound. So if he wills it should not go beyond a certain point, it doesn't go beyond that certain point. Therefore, where did it stop? It stopped at the wall of the Ol Moed. The sound did not go further, regardless of the intensity and the decibels of that sound of the voice of Hashem.